No one has ever died because of Swedish nuclear power. Until recently, nuclear power provided about 40% of that country's electricity, similar to hydro. Fossil fuels only generated about 1% of Sweden's electricity. But that's about to change for the worse. As Sama Bilbao y Léon and John Lindberg at World Nuclear Association write, starting in 1980, Sweden had proved to the world that it was possible to free itself from fossil fuels for electricity production in less than a decade. One of the world's cheapest and cleanest electricity systems was delivered, at the same time as Swedish life improved without sacrificing the environment. For almost 10 years, Sweden has been a net exporter of low-carbon electricity to other parts of Europe. Sweden is farther along in its commercial nuclear waste disposal program than most countries and is building 2 deep geologic nuclear waste repositories at Forsmark. So, with their nuclear reactors only about halfway through their lifespans, and the whole program running really well, who in Sweden would want to completely shut them down? Members of the Swedish coalition government, led by Sweden's Green Party, people who get a Pavlovian gag reflex just thinking of nuclear. They want to prematurely close their entire nuclear fleet, and replace the 2 trillion kWhs with renewables and natural gas. Their almost complete lack of the technical, environmental and operational knowledge of each of these energy sources might be understandable if it weren't Sweden. This country has an extremely good grasp of all these issues, so it must be willful ignorance, for which we should be less forgiving. And I guess, like Germany, they don't mind the idea of being dependent on Russia. Worse still, replacing nuclear with renewables and natural gas would kill tens of thousands more people over the next few decades and would triple their carbon emissions. Nuclear has avoided over 2 billion tons of CO2 emissions from Sweden since 1980, similar to hydro. An early phase out of nuclear would add over 2 billion tons of CO2 emissions, cause the loss of $120 billion in taxes and undermine their grid reliability in an area of the world that gets really cold. Think Texas of last week. The world's leading climate scientists, James Hansen and most of his colleagues, have warned vehemently that expanding nuclear power is necessary to have any chance of mitigating the worst effects of climate change. After the retirement of the Ringhals 1 reactor, a normal Swedish winter has unraveled the country's grid. The southern part Sweden, which previously had an additional 6 reactors, has been forced to import electricity from coal-fired power plants in Poland and Denmark, and gas-fired power plants in Germany that burn natural gas pipelined in from Russia. So much for the Green Party. What's bizarre about this major step backward is that the people of Sweden overwhelmingly like nuclear power.